What's up everybody, Jason from Jason's Exotic Reptiles. So you went to a reptile show and now you need a cage. You realize you don't have one. Today we're going to talk about how to make a really inexpensive, simple, and quick enclosure if you need one in a pinch or if you want it as a permanent enclosure.
I would have let you put me in a cage.
Well, I have a cage.
Have fun in your cage alone.
Before we dive into what to buy and how to build this enclosure, let's show off this girl who is an incredible IMG Motley 100% het leopard, 66% het lipstick albino, absolutely beautiful boa. At this age, for her to be this dark, it just tells you it's an exceptional IMG. So if you bought something like this, whether it be from a show, hopefully from me, from the website, wherever it is, we have a way to set up an enclosure if you don't have a cage set up yet. Now this can be a temporary or permanent enclosure. However, we're building a small version and you can make these smaller, you can make them larger. Let's put her back and I'll dive into how to actually set this up. So what I like to do is, step one, get your bin. Now if you're at a reptile show, this might be the second thing you buy, but the bins that I like are these. They're Ziploc. Rubbermaid makes one similar. The things you're going to look for in a bin is it has to have a nice tight seal on the lid. These snakes are stronger than you think and they're going to get out. So these have 4 lock latches. This lid is super tight. I cannot push my finger in no matter how much I try. It also has a nice foam seal around the end. Now that's kind of the enclosure itself. We're going to talk about what to do to set it up. If you're at a reptile show, or pet store can get something similar, but if you're at a reptile show, there is almost guaranteed to be somebody selling heat tape. Now, the heat tape you purchase and the length and the size is going to depend on the bin you purchase. So something like this, I believe this bin is about 24 inches by 18 inches wide. It'll work perfect for a boa of that size. You can go larger, you can go a little bit smaller, but it comes in giant rolls and there is almost always somebody at the reptile show selling these, at least all the reptile shows I've been to. I would recommend getting a 12 inch, a 1 foot piece of this 3 inch for a bin this size. You could get it larger if you get one of the larger bins. They have this in, I believe, 3 inch, 4 inch, 11 inch, and I think that's as big as they go. But I recommend 3 inch for a baby boa. You can also pick up a quick thermostat, whether it be through Amazon or if you're at a show, there's going to be somebody selling a simple thermostat that's inexpensive. We're going to go through how to set this up. I would pick up a small hide. Now this hide is probably a little bit too large for the boa that we just showed off, but they have different sizes. These are super inexpensive. These are anywhere from $3 to $10, sometimes $11 if you get a larger one. You can get something fancier than this as well. And you can get most of this stuff at a pet store. If you want to make it elaborate, you get a little plant like this. You can throw that in there. You can get multiple plants, a simple or a complex water bowl. So make it as big as you like. This one I believe is an 8 or 9 inch. This one's a 6 inch. These are $1 at the dollar store, but you can get a nice rock bowl. One last thing you may need is some type of bedding. Now I use Cocoa substrate. This specific brand is Gaps. If you're looking for this, it's Gaps Ecosys. You can send them a message on Instagram. That's what I usually contact them on, and just tell them you want the bedding that I use, Jason's Exotic Reptiles. And then some things you're going to need to set the bin up itself is either a drill or I prefer a soldering iron. Now if you use a soldering iron, you're going to want to make sure that you do this outside in a well-ventilated area. When I've done this, I usually put a fan behind me and I'll sit outside. It's pretty cold out there. It's like 20, 30 degrees out there, so we're not going to actually burn the bin itself, but you let this heat up. I draw a line on the side with a pencil, and that way all my holes are nice and even. I might even mark it at intervals, and I would say solder or drill to a lesser amount and see how that holds humidity. Another thing you are going to need, if you buy the heat tape itself, is you can also solder these clips right to the heat tape, but they sell these little custom clips that you just bang them on the heat tape with a hammer and you put the wire in there, and you can buy an extension cord like this for about $1 at Home Depot, and you would just cut the plug part off. So this is the same thing, just a different color. You cut this plug part off that you would normally plug into, strip the wire, and you put this piece of wire inside the little clip hole, bang that with a hammer, and it's ready to go. Now before you're confused and overwhelmed, most vendors at reptile shows that sell the heat tape will also set up the heat tape for you. it's like $4 for them to set it up. Sometimes it's $5 to $10 if you want them to set this up with the cord and the clips. I would recommend doing that. So let's get into the bin setup, and I'm going to show you how simply, this bin is maybe $15. You have the hide that's, call it $5. You have the bowls that are a couple dollars. This thermostat is probably the most expensive piece. This specific one is an Inkbird. It's the non-Wi-Fi. I believe the model number is ITC 308. It's not on here, but ITC 308. So that's the ones that I like to use because they're inexpensive. When they stop working, they usually default to the off mode, and I just replace them. But you can just get something simple from a Petco for, let's say, $20, $30. Petco, PetSmart, any local pet store should have a Reptile thermostat. So first thing I would do, take the bin, burn or drill some holes. I will say if you drill holes in this, make sure that you take your time. You can easily crack these, and you're usually going to start out great, and you're going to crack it halfway through or on your last hole as you're drilling, and you just spent all this time. It's not going to be the end of the world, but depending on the plastic, it could crack and shatter the bin itself. So we're going to set this bin up a little bit. You don't need a ton of substrate. That block will probably fill this bin up 10 times, if not more, but we're going to fill it up with some substrate. I'm going to show you what this enclosure will look like at the end too. I'm not going to set the heat tape up because it's just time consuming, and as I recommend, have somebody that knows what they're doing set it up. You can use a large bowl, small bowl, whatever you prefer. You can use multiple bowls if your bin's a little bit bigger. We're going to go for the large bowl here. I'm going to put that in the corner. I'm going to clear some substrate around. And if you do use soil or bioactive, you can actually plant plants directly in it. You could also just get a pot like this and put the pot right in there. Now, if this heat tape were set up, which I'll mimic what it would look like, is you want to run it on one side. So you pick a side. I usually recommend putting it on the side where the hide is. You could also put the hide in the middle, but I'm going to try to squeeze this under here, see if I can do this without knocking stuff off the table. And I'm just going to use this tape to leverage it there. So you put it under one side, and now I have a giant piece that's hanging over here. Throw that on the side there. So you got your hide, your water bowl, some plants that give the snake an extra place to play, and your enclosure is ready to go. When you do set up your thermostat, I usually recommend taping the probe directly to the heat tape. Remember, you are not trying to control the inside temperature with your thermostat. You are, but you are controlling the temperature of the heat tape and then monitoring the inside of the enclosure to make sure you're not exceeding or you're not below the temperature. So if I want my hotspot to be, let's just say 92 degrees, my heat tape, my thermostat might need to be set somewhere around 95 to maybe even 100 degrees, depending on your specific room setup. Be careful that you give this time to actually simulate to the temperature, and you're not just putting it in after 2 minutes and saying it's good. Give it a few hours to run, check the temperature. But when you put this lid on the enclosure, you have this perfect enclosure that has a plant, has a large water bowl, has a hide, has the right temperatures. And the nice thing about a piece of heat tape versus a heat pad that you buy from a pet store, which is totally fine, and I would actually tape this to the bottom, is that you can, if this is too much heat, I can push it off a little bit. So, or cut the end of the heat tape. So you can kind of adjust how much heat tape you actually need for this specific enclosure you're trying to build. But let's actually put the snake in and see what it looks like. One more thing before we do that is when you tape your heat tape, or if you have a heat pad that has sticky adhesive on it, with the heat tape, you're going to want to get a roll of foil tape like this. It's about $10 to $15 from Home Depot. The advantage of this is the glue doesn't melt with heat. It's meant for HVAC, so you'll find it in the HVAC, the plumbing and heating section. Super common. If you just ask anybody at Home Depot or Lowe's or General Hardware store, say I need foil tape, they're going to know what you're looking for. But you would tape this to the back. It is a little bit of a pain to get the foil tape off the back of this because it's kind of like a peel and stick. But you'd peel it, you'd tape it right on, and you'd sandwich your thermostat probe in between the bin and the heat tape on the outside. Reason for that is the snake can easily move the temperature probe around, and now the snake has moved it to the water bowl and your snake overheats. So thermostat probe always on the outside. We'll put this girl in there, see what she'll look like, and that's kind of the enclosure. This is something that sounds complicated, but it's actually quite simple. You could have this enclosure set up in about an hour. You could do it makeshift as soon as you leave the reptile show. You could buy most of these supplies at the reptile show. Plants are optional. You could get rid of the plant, but if it's your pet, give it a plant. Let it enjoy something. But with the lid on, you got a perfect little makeshift enclosure that can get you by until you get your real enclosure, or this can actually be the real enclosure till the snake grows out of it. If you liked this style, you can just buy a bigger tub and repeat the process. They sell these pretty large around Christmas time. Home Depot and Lowe's usually have the Christmas tree totes, they're like 52, 53 inches long, 18 inches or 24 inches wide. They're maybe 18 to 24 inches tall. That could be a permanent enclosure for a boa. Just make sure that the lid is tight and secured. You can, weights on the side are not enough. That really does need to have a strong locking lid, which those Christmas tree totes do have. So there you have it, a very simple, easy to make makeshift enclosure. If you buy a snake randomly on impulse, or you just bought something and the enclosure is delayed, this gets you moving until your real enclosure comes in. So until next video, hope you found this helpful, and let's keep it moving.